G'day, I'm Dean. We've got a Ford Territory here. We're doing some CV joints, boots in the front end. I thought this would be a good one to show you the process of doing it. It's a bit of a job, not the world's hardest job, but looks worse than it probably is. Let me step you through it. So firstly, what we've got is the CV shaft. It's already out, but it's the shaft that drives the front wheels. Now, if yours is a two-wheel drive, you will not have this problem. It's only on the four-wheel drive Ford Territories that we have to do it. So the process is you take the wheel off, you pull the brake calipers off, you tie it back up here so that you don't strain the brake lines. It'll be covered in grease, like here, these grease particles, globules. So, because the boot, when I show you in a sec, has come apart and caused the grease to go everywhere. So what the process is we just knock the retainer off from up here, drop the link pin off where it goes in the back of this carrier here. You drop the bolt out the bottom of the control arm. All that falls forward, which allows you to push this down and out of the way for you to get the CV shaft out of that location in there, at the end of my finger, and the new fresh grease blob. Pull that part out. So what you do once you've got all that apart, you see in the end there's a spline. You just push that out of the way and you use a lever and you lever the bar out. This side, the left-hand side, is exactly the same, but in this case we've taken off the tie rod end. So stick a rag or something in there because it'll spew out oil if you don't over on this side. So not on the other side though. So when you got the shafts out, here they are. So that shaft is the spline that goes on the outer end, and that's the outer boot. You can see that one's all cracked out there. That happens over time. And so the replacement is, it's the same on both ends. All we got to do is so this is the other shaft, is you just got to take off the circlip which lives on the end of that, and then you take the drive bearings off, then you take this yoke out, just tap that out with a hammer, slide the whole boot off and then replace it. That's the old school way of doing it, and nothing more to it. We have had a problem with these before on this end though, where you can damage that ABS ring on there if you tap this too hard. So like oftentimes with these, you stick them in the vise sort of somehow like that to pull them apart. You'll see the process when that's all pulled off. But if you do that, you can damage those ABS rings, and then you're going to buy a new shaft. So you can actually buy a new shaft and it has all the boots and everything's already fitted. They're in the sort of $130, $140 mark. That's our experience with them. So they're not incredibly expensive anyway. So if you're doing this at home on your own, it's probably just as easy, cheap to replace the shaft. But we use these generic boots. They're equally good. That one goes on this end here like that. And then when it comes time to fit the wire to them, you use the wire tool that clamps it up. So you can buy those at Repco or super cheap for like $12. They cost nothing. And they cut it off at the end. Oh, more than 12. How much are they? Oh, maybe 30, 40. Maybe $30, $40. So that's it. That's the job for replacing the boots. Just to retain the grease back in the CV joints to retain the longevity of them. And the installation's the same, but in reverse. So you put the shaft end in, or pull your rag out first, shaft end in there, the other drive shaft in there, and just reassemble. Put the link pin back into the carrier, attach the top, and so your tie rod's back up, put your bolt back in the bottom of the control arm, and go ahead, reconnect your brakes, put the wheel back on. Now if it's a Ford Territory and if it's due for any sort of work in the front end like this, you're probably going to find it's going to need diff bushes, and I've made a series of videos on those. But just briefly, if you're buying a Ford Territory, you need to double, triple check the diff bushes in them, because they flog out, and they all do it just up in there. And I've made about 1,000 videos on these. They do them up in there, sorry, back here, up in, there's one. So that one there, they crack around that edge there. So that one, it's a bit hard to tell without the light. And then the same over this side up there behind the fuel tank. So so just thought I'd drop that in there, that when if you're doing any work on your Falcon or your Territory, they're all the same. Drop them forward, reverse, forward, reverse. If you hear a clunk coming out the back end, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be your diff bushes. Hope that helps you change your CV boots.